Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you all here. And thanks for bringing the sunshine, at least for the moment. My name's Tom Tritton, class of 1969, and I'm currently the vice chair of the Board of Trustees here at Ohio Wesleyan. So, on behalf of the board, the administration, the faculty, the staff, the students, and everybody, it's my pleasure to welcome you here today for the Merrick Hall groundbreaking ceremonies. This building is an OWU icon, as you know. And unfortunately, it's been offline for more than 25 years. We were actually afraid that it might sink into the ground and be missed. But last June, President Rock Jones announced an $8 million gift from an anonymous Ohio Wesleyan couple that funds the entire renovation cost for this building. So as you can imagine, after the announcement, dozens and dozens of alumni, as well as current faculty and staff, wrote to the university to share not only their gratitude for the gift, but also their Merrick memories. I can't resist telling you mine. In 1965, when I was a first-year student, I took Spanish 1 in this very building. I didn't know a word of Spanish, and the professor proclaimed that she did not know a word of English. I found out later that that wasn't true, but it was a really good way to get people to learn a new language. Don't ask me what grade I got, though. So Merrick Hall is one of 11 sites on the OWU campus listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. For those of you historians, the other locations are Austin, Edwards, Elliott, Perkins, Sanborn, Selby, Slocum, Sturgis, Stuyvesant, University Hall. During its lifetime, Merrick Hall has also been known as Science Hall and Alumni Hall. Classes ranged all over the place from language, as I said, to zoology to geography. In a little bit, you're going to learn from Emeritus Professor of History Richard Smith about a little more about the history. When the Merrick renovation is complete, the first floor will house a new home for the Ohio Wesleyan Connection, the OWU Connection, a very innovative curricular initiative that's propelling the university's pedagogy now and in the future. Students and faculty will again fill the second floor classrooms with discussions, debates, lectures, presentations, all the things that students and faculty do. And the third floor is going to be a stunning venue for special campus events. You're all going to really enjoy coming back to see what that looks like. So we gathered today to honor both the past and embrace the future, and we've invited several Ohio Wesleyan faculty members, family members, to share their thoughts. Each speaker has been asked to bring an item to place in the time capsule, right there, in front of the podium here. That's going to be installed at Merrick, and instructions will be given to be opened 100 years from now, in 2114. So I was asked yesterday what I would like to place in there, and I realized that the person that had a huge influence on me was Dr. James Leslie. You all remember Dr. James Leslie? He was the university chaplain for many years. Was very influential in my life and in showing me the power of living a principled life. So I am placing in there Jim Leslie's book, Make Us Aware. I'm going to introduce all four of the speakers, and they'll come up in sequence so we don't have to pop up and down. And then at the end, we'll be done. So the first speaker is going to be Emeritus Professor of History, Dr. Richard Smith. Following him will be current Professor of Zoology, Dr. Amy Downing. She'll share her thoughts on this historic renovation from the perspective of a current faculty member. We have one of the newest members of the Alumni Association as the next speaker from the class of 2014, Era Ramesh. And finally, what's his name over here? President Rock Jones will close the event by sharing his thoughts about Ohio Wesleyan today and in the future. When Rock finishes and has put his letter in the time capsule, I will come back to close the ceremonies. So, Richard.
Let me suggest that some of you might want to come up front. There are some spaces up here, please. Don't hesitate, it won't irritate us. Please, there are some spaces up here, 8, 10 seats. Come on, come on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please. Thank you, Tom. Members of the Platform Party, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I deeply appreciate the honor of standing here before you this afternoon. Today I wish to place Ohio-Wesleyan in the flow of American history. Lean back and think back, if you will, to the colonists of Central North America. Primarily British, they had to move west to expand and develop. Hence the westward movement, the probing of the frontier, became an essential theme in American history. It was and still is one that we must wrestle with and think about. In all that struggle, after 4 wars, the British finally won control of O-Y-O, the Iroquoian word which meant beautiful country. In 1763, they won complete control of the area. Yet within 20 years, rebellious Americans took control. I must say, settlements in O-Y-O were established after the war and even before the Constitution was written. Then, of course, in the quick sequence of events, statehood came in 1803. Regardless of their ethnicity, the pioneers brought the English language and literature, the English legal system, and they brought an open, basically tolerant society. More men voted in East Coast states and would vote in Ohio proportionally than any states or any government in all of Western Europe. There was, by the way, and this may surprise you, to show you the level is not all crude, there was a Haydn Society operating in Cincinnati continuously after 1819, playing and performing Haydn that early. Education was mandated. At first, a little bit soft because of some influences, but as New Englanders came in, New Yorkers, Ohio mandated free public education in the 1820s. Everyone, of course, was thinking of collegiate studies. Well, I don't have to remind you, but I will anyway. Harvard, 1636, then William & Mary, then Yale and others, well established by the Revolution, well established in the early Republic. Why not go there? But distance was the factor. Travel conditions, if you think of it, were so primitive that regional colleges had to be established, and various sects did their thing in doing it. So the Methodists, after the failure of a joint venture with Kentucky Methodists, proceeded to found Ohio-Wesleyan in 1842. They took over Elliott Hall, which is behind us here, and to my left and your right, in 1842, and within some weeks immediately reorganized an academy that would meet here. So what do we have? 1842 Wesleyan with an academy operating. That beautiful federal-style building, 1835, was really relatively new. 1844, 2 years later, the president opened the college division. By 1849, get the time sequence here, they opened a 2-year college prep division and a 2-year science division. To accommodate the students that began to pile into the place, Thompson Chapel was opened, and here let me guide you. Elliott Hall was off here to my right, your left, in the central part of U-Hall. Elliott Hall faced Sandusky Street, then opened, in the middle, Thompson Chapel, 1853, to have a chapel on the second, third floor, and in the basement, chem labs. By 1855, the next building Sturgis built and opened as the library. All 3 of them built in that federal style, a great front for the street, and I can give you some statistics right in the middle of that decade, 511 students. One thing I suggest you're contemplating, was there any evidence of a conflict between academic learning and religion? Science and the Enlightenment and religion? None here at this school. Oh yes, I forgot the slavery controversy. The first blacks that arrived in Virginia, 1619, were indentured servants and got their freedom. So did other blacks thereafter. That's a bit of a surprise. Eventually some slaves in the 40s and 50s, then heavily by the 60s and 70s. The first protest against slavery, 1650, 1688, 1690, that early. So the controversy with defenses was well underway by 1695, 1700. Through the next part of the century and the next century, it continued to develop. The free states developing north of the Mason-Dixon line, holding on to slavery. And I may surprise you in this quick review that the thing that broke up the Constitutional Convention came within a few votes. They had a meeting that night, and a quorum was the slavery controversy. Eventually, the Yankees backed in and compromised. The first call for secession came under President John Adams, Mississippi Territory, 1798. So then you're down into matters as you come on. The rest of the next decade, violence, debates, splits here and there, and the Protestant churches split. Our President Thompson, who was a theologian, President Merrick, which his name was a science man, by the way, helped and possibly lead the split, the campus and the town and so on, going, of course, with the anti-slave group in 1844. So the slavery issue continued then in the late 40s, early 50s, and obviously one encounters the Civil War, the long, desperate, and sometimes savage Civil War, which did end with a Union restored and freedom for African Americans. In the midst of all this, Wesleyan contributed manpower, money, emotion, and much to the Union effort. But I do have to say there were a few Copperheads and 2 Confederate generals that are not generally recognized. All right, post-war readjustments and advances for the American society, an exciting new time. Merrick, now president, brought up the old idea, which had been floating around since the 50s, of an all-science building. Much talk there in the late 60s. Finally, he sponsored a garden party right out where we are, 68, in the summer. The first spadesful of dirt was turned, and Merrick Hall is to be built. There was some difficulty. Merrick was ill much of the time and couldn't be out raising money. The other thing is a delicate subject, but I have to mention it. Merrick wanted to abolish all Greek fraternities. He couldn't raise the money on that score. So finally, the trustees dipped into the endowment. President Jones dipped into the endowment. And with the endowment money, it was finished in 1873. I'm not sure of the figures, but it's one of the first all-scientific buildings on a liberal arts faculty campus in this country. What do we have here? It was called then Alumni Building. The architect was William Tinsley. The style is one completely out of step with everything we have. It's English Jacobean. If you've been in England and seen Blickling Hall, if you've been in the Netherlands and seen some of their Stadhuises, such as Delft, you'll recognize the 3 decorations there. Native limestone here, and here it is, a science building, an exclusive science building, and set in this location behind the first 3, as you can see. So this afternoon we must pay tribute. We are gratified and must acknowledge the faculty and the students who studied here, who worked here. Over the years, they succeeded in every conceivable occupation. Let me mention 2, however, went to world fame. One is Sherwood Rowland, who was a chemist, whose work won him the Nobel Prize. The other, David H. Smith, a medical man, whose vaccination for spinal meningitis won him world fame. So I come to you because I was one of the last to speak in the building and teach in the building. And all of you are going to chuckle a bit, I hope, or maybe break into laughing. Remember how steep those steps were on there? You go up those steps, very steep, but I had nice rooms, airy rooms. It went very well. I must say, since it was closed, there's been strong demand to reconfigure and reopen the building. Reopen it, do something with it, was the constant call, faculty, students, alums, and so on. That leads me to where we are today. That hope is now to be consummated. And for this, we're all deeply thankful. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you all. I arrived at Ohio Wesleyan University about 13 years ago when I joined the faculty in the zoology department. It was an exciting time to come because the new Science Center was just about to break ground. We were currently in the Bigelow Rice building. And it was in the context of our impending move to the Shimel Conradi Science Center that I learned a little bit about the history of Merrick Hall. I learned, among other things, that Merrick Hall used to be the home for zoology before Bigelow Rice, and that the top floor of Merrick used to be the home of one of the best natural history museums in the state. And when our newly retired member, Dr. Jed Burt, first arrived on campus, there was a greenhouse formerly attached to the building that served as his aviary. The zoology department has since moved twice into brand new facilities. The Natural History Museum has been dispersed, and the greenhouse and the aviary have been dismantled. But all the while, this impressive and historic building, Merrick, has remained vacant, no longer serving an integral role in the academic program at Ohio Wesleyan. So the news of the transformative gift to renovate Merrick was thrilling for the campus community. We are excited to see Merrick Hall once again become a vibrant center of academic life on this campus. For me as a faculty member, one of the most exciting aspects of the Merrick Hall renovation is knowing that we are going to have a meeting place in the heart of campus where multiple disciplines can come together to tackle and understand and engage in the complex problems that are increasingly global in nature and will require interdisciplinary solutions. I like to envision that these historic bones of Merrick Hall are going to be restored to embrace a modern and relevant curriculum, what we now refer to as the OU Connection, a curriculum that remains rooted in the historical liberal arts tradition of Ohio Wesleyan University. I am going to add a copy of the book Alexander Wilson, the Scot who founded American ornithology, to the time capsule. This is a book that was recently co-authored by our newly retired faculty member, Dr. Jed Burt, and his co-author, William Davis. And this book reflects on the history and contributions of Alexander Wilson to the development of the field of ornithology. I think this book is fitting for the time capsule for a couple of reasons. First, it symbolizes the spirit of the liberal arts because it describes how the confluence of multiple disciplines, science, writing, and art, all came together to help establish and advance the discipline of ornithology, a field that still remains current and relevant today. Second, this book represents a substantive scholarly contribution of an Ohio Wesleyan faculty member whose career spanned Merrick Hall, Bigelow Rice, and Schimmel Conradi Science Center. I think it's notable that the long-standing careers of some of our faculty members can sometimes outlive the usefulness of the bricks and mortar that we inhabit. And while the details of the buildings on this campus, the faculty that inhabit them, the staff and the students, these all change over time, but the historical traditions of Ohio Wesleyan continue. It is really exciting to see this historical part of our campus about to take on a new and active role at Ohio Wesleyan. This restoration of Merrick Hall will not only facilitate our ability to deliver the curriculum to our students, but it will also serve as a showcase of the role and the value of a liberal arts education for generations of Ohio Wesleyan students to come. We are deeply grateful to the donors who made this possible.
Good evening. A year ago, I was asked to speak at the announcement of the gift to renovate Merrick Hall. And then about a month ago, I was asked to speak here, soon after my graduation, about what this gift would mean. And so I thought I would reflect on my enduring struggle with graduation and my new status as an alum and everything that goes with it. So at the top of the list of things that I dislike is change. I've always been resistant to change. I cried for hours when my parents sold my childhood home. I got anxious every year when I have to leave another room. And as you can imagine, this past graduation weekend was rough on my nerves. I've been subjected to all the pithy reassurances, from the weak, "It'll all stay the same, don't worry," to the truly enraging, "Change is the only constant in the universe." So knowing this about me, you wouldn't be surprised to realize that it took me a while to come to terms about the changes on campus, from the renovation of Merrick to the new Simpson Querrey Fitness Center. For the longest time, especially over the last 6 months, I felt confused and betrayed, to say the least. I'd been wonderfully codependent with this institution for so long, and then suddenly I was told to pack my bags and was kicked to the curb because that's all part of growing up and being an adult. And here OWU is, changing and growing, new buildings being added all the time, and existing buildings being improved. How dare they, I thought. How dare they kick me out, and while I mope around in Delaware, unable to move on, the school just does so and improves. In my mind, Ohio Wesleyan had no right to change. I wanted the OWU I remembered, the OWU of my 4 years here. And then I paused and rethought that, because which OWU did I really want? The one of my freshman year, before Stuy's renovation, the one of my sophomore year, before the fountain, the OWU of my junior year, before the Commons, or the one of my senior year that included all of these wonderful things. Somehow, someway, while I was frolicking down the J, Owu changed around me, and I barely even took notice. Like Merrick's walls and foundations, there are basic, inherent things about me that are the same as they were 4 years ago, strong and unchanging. But there are also parts of me that have been changed by time and by Ohio Wesleyan. And sure, I'm not the person I was 4 years ago, and Merrick is not the same building it was in 1873, and that's not a bad thing. Progress, after all I've been told, is necessary to success. And so I had to reevaluate my feelings. Yes, Owu and I had a good run, and yes, they did kick me to the curb. But not before they taught me to stand up, dust myself off, and take on the world. Today, as a fresh graduate, I know that Owu and I will grow and change, separately and differently, but we have served each other well and will continue to support each other into the future. And so into the time capsule, I want to put this tassel for the class of 2014, which serves as an enduring and beautiful reminder of my relationship with this institution. And yes, when I come back in 2064 for my 50th reunion, who knows how many of the things I remember so fondly today will be gone, left behind in only the dusty pages of history. But the greatest strength of Ohio Wesleyan has always been its ability to welcome back its children, even if what we come back to isn't quite the Owu we remember. Thank you.
I knew I was in trouble when I saw the program and that I was following Ara. Thank you, Ara. This is a magnificent, historic day, one to which we have all been looking forward for some time. As Professor Smith has reminded us, this building was built at a time when the institution was envisioned at a time when the institution was still in its infancy. Just years after the founding of Ohio Wesleyan, when the curricula of small colleges across the country still reflected almost exclusively the classical disciplines of the ancient world. Ohio Wesleyan was among those early institutions to envision adding and integrating fully into the curriculum the study of science. And very few institutions at the time were imagining a building devoted exclusively to the study of science. But within a decade of its founding, the faculty and leadership of this university imagined such a building. And in the 1850s, the design was undertaken, and then, as Professor Smith has reminded us, the war arrived and things were delayed, but by the early 1870s, construction was undertaken, and in 1873, this building that sits behind us and has graced this campus now for 140 years was opened as a building devoted to the instruction of science with, as Professor Downing has reminded us, on the third floor, a magnificent museum of natural history. For many decades, the building served the purposes of science. It has served in other purposes in ensuing decades, and then approximately 30 years ago, the building was closed. It was reopened a time or two for various reasons, but has largely remained dormant. When I arrived on campus 6 years ago, I saw this magnificent building, so gracious, so distinctive, crying out for the support that would bring it back to life. And we began to imagine on campus the uses to which a building of this building in its restored form could be put. The faculty had been working on ways to bring the curriculum of a liberal arts institution in the 21st century in a visionary way to the future that would serve us not only at this time but into the middle of this century. And with its work developed the Owu Connection, providing opportunities for students to study across the disciplines, to explore the complex problems that demand solutions from their generation. And in the Owu Connection, as they began to explore those issues, to also make connections between theory and practice, and between the campus and the world, preparing themselves for the lives they would lead in a global economy and in a global society. And so the renovation of Merrick was imagined as a place that would house the Owu Connection, so that if the building were restored, as was the case when it was constructed 140 years ago, it would house that which gives the greatest distinction to the Ohio Wesleyan curriculum of this time. And then, as was shared a year ago, we had the deep honor and great pleasure to announce a gift from anonymous donors to bring this building back to life. And so we celebrate this day. A number of you have shared with me that some of your best memories of Ohio Wesleyan occurred in this building. In Columbus in December at a holiday party, I made that observation, and a young person who has graduated since I have been the president at Ohio Wesleyan came to me afterwards and said, "Rock, one of my best memories of Ohio Wesleyan occurred in Merrick Hall." I said, "It was closed the whole time you were a student." She said, "One of my best memories at Ohio Wesleyan occurred at Merrick Hall." The building was gone but never forgotten, and now it returns to life. I have prepared for placement in the time capsule a letter to be opened 100 years from now. The letter is addressed to the president of Ohio Wesleyan, assuming in 2114. I'd like to share with you that letter. Dear members of the Ohio Wesleyan family, I write this letter in the spring of 2014, anticipating that a centennial will have passed before you read its contents. My mind whirls with possibilities as I think about the Ohio Wesleyan community and campus in 2114. Do you still celebrate Day on the J? Do loyal alumni still gather every spring to reconnect and relive memories? Do you still have computers in the classroom? Do you know what a computer is? No matter how campus traditions have changed, no matter how the OWU educational experience has evolved, will they say OWU, OWU, or something else, I am confident that the grounding principles of Ohio Wesleyan will have guided you well. I am confident that you continue to have a strong faculty committed to preparing students to think critically, communicate effectively, and work collaboratively to meet both the challenges of today and tomorrow. I am confident that you have dedicated staff members and administrators who work tirelessly to make Ohio Wesleyan a second home for its students, providing a supportive and nurturing environment that helps to transform young lives. And I am confident that you have outstanding students who come to Ohio Wesleyan from all over the world seeking a liberal arts education that helps them link academic theory with real-world experience, that helps them to understand issues from different academic disciplines and cultural experiences, that helps them to become moral leaders in the society of the 21st century. This letter is rested inside Merrick Hall, a building that opened in 1873 and underwent an $8 million renovation beginning today, May 16, 2014. I write this letter and we celebrate this time capsule as a part of our groundbreaking ceremony. Today we are celebrating the generosity of two of our alumni whose vision and financial support enable us to breathe new life into this historic structure. In its early days, Merrick Hall was a science building, and a rare purpose for its time. Even then, more than a century ago, Ohio Wesleyan's commitment to educational innovation was evident. In 2015, Merrick Hall will reopen and again support innovative teaching and learning as it becomes home to the OWU Connection, a curricular initiative that we believe is enabling us to create a model liberal arts curriculum for the 21st century. My mind continues to whirl. How is Merrick Hall being used in 2114? What innovation is Ohio Wesleyan employing for the better of its students then? Whatever teaching methods are being used and whatever subjects are being taught, I'm sure the marriage of innovation and education remains alive and well at Ohio Wesleyan University. It is, I am sure, still a great day to be a bishop. Rock.
University presidents are granted a lot of leeway for needing to be in multiple places at the same time. And I know Rock has other demands on his time right now. So if he slips out before you have a chance to share your favorite Merrick memory, you'll catch him some later during the weekend. University faculty are granted a lot of leeway for being absent-minded. So naturally, Professor Smith forgot to do his time capsule bit, so I'm going to call him back to the podium.
Very embarrassing, very embarrassing. Actually, a work was written 10 years ago developing the history of liberal arts small campus colleges in Ohio. And it weighs 4.5 pounds, but I want to drop it in a capsule. But naturally, I was thinking of the greater things and this and that, and you know how it goes. By the way, I see Amy Griffith out there. I see Art Schilt. I see Dana Jackson and a few other students. Would you please see me after class, because a couple of reports come in on your book review, and I don't really know. All right, thank you.
I want you to know that the first floor and the third floor of Merrick are open right now for supervised tours, and they will be open till 7 p.m. tonight. They'll also be open again from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and from 2 to 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, but it won't be open on Sunday. Please know that it is an active construction site, so be careful when you enter and avoid wearing open-toed shoes. So on behalf of the board, President Jones, the Ohio Wesleyan community, we thank you for attending today's groundbreaking ceremony. Please enjoy the rest of the weekend. And for those of you who are doing the Blues and Barbecue, you know that the location has been moved to Ham Williams, which is actually closer to here than Stuyvesant, where it originally was to be held. Thank you all.
Here's a guy I know who's got a great in his reports.